We're effing psyched all the time. We're laying in bed on Saturday mornings, smoking weed, watching movies naked. If we had kids, we could not be effing doing this.
Seth Rogan talked about how happy he and his wife are to not have children. And this set Tim Pool off for some reason. He went on a rant about this. Emma Vigeland and her guest hosts on the Majority Report went over this. So we're going to get into more of Tim Pool's views on people not having children.
Tim Pool tweeted this out, and I guess he decided that it was such a good thought that he wanted to follow up on his program. Because Seth Rogan and his wife don't have children. They've decided they don't want to have children, that they're perfectly content in their relationship as just the two of them with their dogs and how much fun they get to have. And I've heard him in interviews explain this a few times. Seems perfectly reasonable and normal. But Tim Pool is very angry and upset about this because, you know, as a father of two and a husband for 10 plus years, he's got to be really outraged over. Oh, wait, hold on. I'm just getting word in my ear that Tim Pool is not married.
He's paying for extra rooms in his house, though, so you know what that means.
He's not married. Actually, all of his colleagues like kind of hang out at his house and work there, and they chill out and they play poker and they skate. Oh, those weren't his kids. Oh, and he doesn't have a wife. Okay, all right. So these are his opinions on Seth Rogan.
Oh, we got another one of these. So we have this quote from Seth Rogan about not wanting to have kids. And it's really sad, but I do think there is some defense I'll throw the way of these.
What's sad about people choosing not to have kids? If that's the life that they want to live, why is that sad? Why is it any business of Tim Pool's?
Individuals only a little bit. And look, I think it's great to have kids. I think you should have kids. I think more people should have kids. I think the climate cultists.
Guess what? Lots and lots of people have kids. We have billions and billions of people in the world. People are having kids.
Don't want you to have kids, and the Malthusians don't want you to have kids, but I think you should. And before I get millions of comments from people being like, "Where's your kids, Tim?" Yeah. I'll just put it this way: we have 2 extra bedrooms in our house, like family planning. We'll leave it at that.
What? I wonder if it will be left.
But I do think.
What? That's not. You can't use that to defend not having kids. You have 2 extra bedrooms. That's
just waiting to be filled.
That's family planning. We'll leave it at that. Personal business. But I do think there is something to give. You know, on like a scale of 1 to 10. I will give a 9 in the criticism and a 1 in the defense of people like Seth Rogan. But let's roll with this.
How charitable.
Here's the quote. We're effing psyched all the time. We're laying in bed on Saturday mornings, smoking weed, watching movies naked. If we had kids, we could not be effing doing this.
They're enjoying their life. They're happy with the life that they have chosen. I don't think that they're saying, at least in this quote here, that everybody else should be like them. But this is the life that they've chosen, and they're happy. Isn't that what freedom is all about? Doing what you want to do as long as you're not harming someone else. They're not harming anybody else here. And again, there are plenty of other people having children. So the fact that Seth Rogan and his wife choose not to have children is not going to be the downfall of society.
Okay, I'm just going to say this. It's a weird thing for someone who hasn't experienced something to be like, it is better to not have experienced said thing.
What?
There are people who have kids.
Okay, so this is a bizarre take by Tim Pool here. He is commenting on his show about things that he has not experienced. He's commenting on parenting, which he has no experience in. He comments all the time about politicians. He's never been a politician. He's never been a president. He has very strong opinions about women and gay people and trans people. He hasn't experienced any of those things. If he would stop talking about the things that he has not experienced himself, he wouldn't have a show anymore. There wouldn't be anything for him to talk about.
Let's
You know what's
meditate
weirder?
on that
You
a
know
little
what's
bit.
weirder? Somebody who has not experienced said thing insisting that experiencing said thing is necessary to creating a fulfilling life. Because Tim, you don't have kids, as he just admitted. You're more like him. Yeah. You're more like that
Seth
guy.
Rogan is saying, I'm fulfilled, actually, love my life.
Actually, you're less like him because he's got a wife that agreed to marry him.
He's doing what he wants.
And loves him. And he's got a great weed business. And he gets to smoke it. Oh, shoot, we lost Binder. Anyway, go on, Brandon.
I was just going to say, you know, as Otto von Bismarck said, only fools learn from experience. Smart people learn from other people's experiences. Of a tie to like...
And it's also people like Tim Pool who want to talk about freedom and how all of our freedoms are being taken away and all of this. Tim Pool wants to be able to control other people's lives. He obviously thinks that his way is the correct way. And that's not freedom. If you're wanting to impose your will on others, that's not freedom. And that's what Tim Pool is doing here, is he's saying his way is the right way, not, hey, live whatever life you want to live as long as you're not harming someone else. That's freedom.
Suburban life, you know, because a lot of people move to the suburbs for the comfort and the ease of moving to the suburb when it comes to once they have a kid. It just represents a certain lifestyle to them that even if they don't want to engage in, they still think other people should be aspiring towards. But it's like, why? Yeah. Like, you know, like, isn't he, by their definitions, like one of those like degenerate liberal Hollywood types? Why do they want more of kids from Seth Rogan? Like they would just be like him.
Yeah, that's a great point. Why would Tim Pool want Seth Rogan and his wife to be bringing more Hollywood elites into the world? He wants good conservative Christian, you know, Seth Rogan isn't a Christian. He wants Tim Pool wants good conservative white Christians to be having the children. So it is kind of a weird take by Tim Pool.
Right.
It's about social control. I mean, what's amazing is that like he pretends like he's this kind of new age. Well, he says he's a liberal, or now he's basically admitted he's a conservative at this point. But like they're just replicating the exact same methods of social control that conservatives and evangelicals have been pushing on this country and the world for a long time, which is just that this is the way that you have to construct your life around your family. And if you don't do so, you're delinquent in some way. And if you're gay, or if you're trans, or if you are outside of this particular set structure of what a family should look like, there's something wrong with you. And
again, as Emma Vigeland is saying there, Tim Pool has very strong opinions about all of those groups that she is talking about there. Tim Pool has very strong opinions about them, even though he doesn't seem to have any personal experience in those groups.
And like, again, but him in particular is why it's just so funny to me. He's now in this whole manosphere arc where, you know, if you're not a guy with a Bugatti and like you're jacked with all the girls, you're not a real alpha. Buddy, I'm looking at you. I'm looking at you. Oh, if you don't have a family and kids, you're not really fulfilled. I don't have a family and kids. How are you, if we're all talking about you got to learn from experience in this way, you are not the right person to be speaking about this. I got to say.
Well, this is what happens though when you're following the conservative script though, yet you don't match what the ideal traditional conservative is. Like you see this all the time.
He's hanging out. Tim Pool's hanging out in his compound, skateboarding with a bunch of dudes and not having children. So it is.
You see this, they are following that classic conservative script because that's actually like the dream for them too. But they haven't obtained that dream because, as Tim has said before, he doesn't have it. He's said it in everyone else is the problem. And if that's what he wants to go by, he could go by that. He could say that everyone else is the problem. A lot of these people though are finding out also that everybody else is the problem when no one else wants to, when they're finding out people don't want to get with them either. And they don't have kids, but they're still trying to follow that conservative script that is the idea.
It's a very strange do as I say, not as I do take by Tim Pool. It's very odd for somebody without a family to be telling other people that they're wrong if they choose not to have children.
Ideal male, but they have not obtained it.
And we should
you
say,
are not the
Bender,
ideal male.
We should say you are.
Actually,
Yeah.
Tim Pool. Yeah, I am the ideal alpha male. I got a boy, I got a girl, 8-year-old, 4-year-old. I got everything. The perfect
Congratulations.
nuclear family. The perfect nuclear family.
So to quote Thomas Friedman, suck on this.
On this.
You just snatched the metaphorical beanie off of his head with that mic drop. But no, I mean, like, you're totally right, Bender, and it's even further than that. Like,
Yeah, how much of an alpha is Tim Pool? He can't even grow hair. He's got to cover it up with a beanie. That's not alpha.
a lot of their appeal to traditional values are literally just coded appeals to like oppressing women and like disallowing minorities for certain spaces, because all of those like manosphere grifter types who talk about like Christian values or like traditional values, they don't want those to encroach upon the way they live their lives. They still want to smoke cigars and drink whiskey in a room full of other men while not really contributing in traditional ways to like society. How does that fit into having a traditional Christian life?
But that's much more the old-fashioned way. If we really get into traditional conservatism, would have been the 50s and 60s when the woman does all the rearing of the children, and the man, yeah, he can be off with the boys, smoking cigars and drinking whiskey or whatever. And that's what Tim Pool is probably more advocating for, not a new agey kind of scenario in which the man is helping out the woman and they're co-partners in this. He would, I'm sure, want the old school, the dad is out being the breadwinner while the wife is at home raising the kids.
Lifestyle. Like those are just like a lot of coded terms for like, well, I want a woman who doesn't like complain, but half of them, like, they're not going to church every week. They're not like trying to, take care of kids at home. Not that they will, or work a 9 to 5 to support children. Like, they just want this as a way to appeal to evangelicals who have tons of money and to like pretend as though, or rather to harken back to a time where like women could not make decisions. But when you talk about the actual traditional roles of men, they have no willingness or interest in filling those roles. You'll have people, you'll have like 20-year-old gamers on like Twitter who like want to play like.
Well, and he's really probably giving Tim Pool too much credit. This is just, the guy's a grifter, and this was a good topic for him to make some money with.
That's a different thing than saying like not.
I'm choosing
kids.
not to have kids.
Yeah.
Right? He
having kids changes you.
Yes, he does. They don't have an interest
Some
in it.
people don't want that change, and they're fine without it. And
Yes.
Actually, like, who cares?
Right.
But actually, who cares is, and why this is, again, this is like a general patriarchal project, but also Tim Pool is just interested in monetizing anxiety of his audience. That's why you get this incel stuff in general. It's how can I be anxious about something that Tim Pool can speak about?
I skipped ahead a little bit just to get for something more interesting.
9 degree of criticism. You got to understand, this could be a cope, right? Seth Rogan with his wife. Here's what I think about. What if his wife can't have kids? What if something happened to her and they cried over it and she miscarried? And so when people come to them and say, you should be having kids, why don't you have kids? Maybe he gets defensive and doesn't want to say something as personal as my wife had.
Well, and that's also one of those things that it's none of anybody else's business. That's a problem in our society, that people like Tim Pool are constantly telling people that they should have children. So whether a couple chooses not to have children or they're unable to have children, it's none of anyone's business for people like Tim Pool to be saying, oh, you should have kids. Oh, when are you going to have kids?
Had cancer and now she can't, and we're struggling.
Why is he coming up with another completely made up fictional scenario? Like he always deals,
really weird.
Even in this, he can't deal with the facts here. Listen, you don't gotta like Seth Rogan for over this. You could think it's something, you could disagree with what he said. You can say to yourself, wow, that's not the life I would want to have. That's me. I wouldn't want to sit in bed. I don't smoke weed, so that takes that off the table for me. So I don't miss that.
There goes the alpha male.
Right. But like, that's not the perfect life for me. I like my kids. I love having them around. It's tons of fun. So you could say
It is funny that Bender is more of the traditional family man than, this guy who's really a lefty is much more of the traditional family man than Tim Pool is. And we'll see if Tim Pool ever actually becomes that.
I disagree with Seth Rogan for my life. That's just something for him. You don't got to come up with a fictional scenario to make Joe Rogan's personal choices fit into your worldview. This is
Bender,
so bizarre.
How can we create hierarchies in society if we can't place judgments on people's life choices? Don't you understand?
Race.
Oh.
And that's what this is all about. As Emma Vigeland is saying, and they've said in the video, this is just a way to try to control other people, to have the society that people like Tim Pool think society should be, and not people in countries like the United States being free to choose whether they want to have kids or not. And for some people, as shocking as that may seem to Tim Pool and other conservatives, to be happy in that decision and to have a fulfilling life with just them and their partner and not having children in that scenario. But they want everybody to, we've got to be these cookie cutter people. And if you are different than what they view to be the ideal family, then it's wrong. But what do you think about what Tim Pool has to say here? Do you think he's correct about this? Should everybody in general be having children? If they don't, is that some kind of moral failing by them? Or do you agree with Emma Vigeland and her co-hosts here on the Majority Report that it's those people's decision how they want to live their life, whether or not they want to have children, and it's not anybody's business, particularly pundits like Tim Pool? Make sure to comment what you think about Tim Pool, Emma Vigeland, the Majority Report, any of these people. Make sure to give me a like and subscribe so I can continue making more videos like this and grow the channel. And I will see you in the next video.